officially Vice President Jourová on behalf of Presseclub Concordia. My name is Daniela Kraus. Thank you. I'm the General Secretary of Presseclub Concordia, which has been advocating for independent journalism since 1859. We are based in Vienna, but we have a European audience today. So welcome to our participants. Both democracy and independent and fair media were taken for granted until we realized they were not granted, as you yourself observed. So thank you very much for accepting the invitation. It's really of utmost importance for us.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you for coming. Let me do a short introduction, Vice President. Věra Jourová is the Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency. From 2014 to 19, she was European Commissioner for Justice, Consumer Protection and Gender Equality at the Juncker European Commission. And she is very well known among all of us for her participation in the laws creation that determine the rules of the protection of people's personal data in the internet. Prior to joining the European Union, she held various positions in the Czech Republic. Before coming to Brussels, she was Czech Minister for Regional Development. And since December 2019, she has been Vice President of the Ursula von der Leyen Commission. And since then, her new portfolio is the respect for European values and transparency. And in December 2020, the European Commission presented the European Democracy Action Plan, which is aimed at building more resilient democracies across the European Union. The plan consists of several parts, and media-related issues play a prominent role in strengthening democracy. We will talk about the action plan and explore its practical implications for media. So thank you again, Vice President Jourová, that you take the time to present and discuss the action plan with us. Before I hand over the word, let me just say some very short words on the format to our audience. Mirjana Tomic, hello, welcome, and myself will conduct a short interview with the Vice President, maximum 20 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. Mirjana Tomic is a former journalist and develops and organizes conferences, seminars, and talks on journalism and politics in Vienna and online. After the introductory conversation, you can either write your question in the chat and I will read it, or you tell us via chat that you want to ask a question live with video and audio, and I shall call you. Please always introduce yourself. Of course, we have to select questions because we only have a limited time, but whichever format you select, please be as short as possible. Please do note, we do stream and we do record. This is an on-the-record talk, and this is a unique opportunity to discuss how to strengthen democracy and media. I hand over to moderator Mirjana Tomic, and thank you again, Vice President.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Thank you very much, Vice President Jourová. Most of the seminars and conferences I organized for journalists on foreign affairs focus on understanding the context, and we have actually a perfect context today for the action plan without even having to look for archives. Yesterday, the anti-corruption prosecutor searched the apartment of one Austrian minister. Polish journalists went blank or black, how you want to call, because of the new tax imposed on them. And one of the last independent radios in Hungary, Klub Radio, went offline because they did not get, they can no longer transmit offline. Online they can, because they lost the frequency. So every aspect of your plan is very, very important. My first question, Vice President, is, you and I come from countries that disappeared in different ways, but they disappeared. So we know everything is possible. When is it that you personally and with your colleagues understood that democracy was so fragile and that there was a need for this plan? And what is it? Which aspect worries you the most of the political developments in Europe that triggered the need for this plan? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mirjana. Thank you, Daniela, for such a warm welcome. I did hope you will not read my long CV, that you only did it short. I think it is quite symbolic that Ursula von der Leyen created this portfolio because when I compare it with the time when I entered the Commission in 2014, it was a kind of, we are working on protecting democracy, rule of law, freedom of speech, fundamental rights. It seemed to be a business as usual. Yeah, even a kind of, sorry to say it, but boring agenda where I was also involved. Look at it now. We have dangerous trend in all those things I mentioned. And I have to say, working on that, it is not ticking the boxes. We just have to take stronger action because we were naive. Democracy is not perpetuum mobile. It will not defend itself. And I think in working on this portfolio, it helps that I experienced on my own skin, not only living in the state which disappeared, but also half of my life, I lived in the regime which ordered one official doctrine, one official truth, where you could forget about independent judges. The judges decided according to the instructions of the government and the party. Forget about free media. Of course, the situation was totally censored. And well, this is still a very strong instinct I have inside of me. And my main mission here is not to let this happen again. And you asked about the main things. For me, there are three things. The rule of law principle respected in all the member states. In everything we are doing, we try to define what we mean by the rule of law, because there was a lot of unclarity in the past. And maybe we neglected this explanatory effort, that we did not invest too much in explaining that nobody should be above the law. The governments must not fortify themselves and order the independent justice how to decide. So the rule of law principle. Then the second thing, free and fair elections. We had in the 20th century several cases when the people cast their vote for the last time in free elections and they didn't know it. They were not aware of that it's the last free vote. And it must not happen again. That's why in our European Democracy Action Plan, we devote so much place to protection of elections. Elections must remain the free and transparent competition of real people, politicians, political parties, their visions, and not the competition of who can use better the dirty methods, especially in online campaigning, who can use better the dirty money, who can do the campaign in less transparent way. We have lessons from the last decade, yeah, the Cambridge Analytica case, to remind you of this very clear case of abuse of private data of people for dirty method, for dirty political campaigning. So free and fair elections. And the third pillar, freedom of speech and free media and strong media. And I think that we have made a horrible mistake in Europe by underestimating the role of media for upholding democracy. Because whenever I want to react on some dangerous developments for instance, in Poland and Hungary, I am blocked by very weak competence we have at the level of the EU, because the media sphere is not our strongest competence. And at the same time, strangely enough, we have a lot of rules, enforceable rules, which cover the world of media as economic sector and not its role as the watchdog of democracy. Yeah, so when I see the accumulation of state advertising going to only some privileged media, when I see the cartel called KESMA in Hungary, when I see the put the pressure on media in Poland, but also on other member states where we see worrying signals, I have to look at telecommunications rules. I have to look at competition rules, whether we can be applied against these bad developments, and we are short in the competencies to address the problems. And that's why in EDAP, in this European Democracy Action Plan, you see that we try to squeeze as much as we can from the competencies to address the issues. We want to increase security of journalists. We want to come with the initiative against abusive litigations. We want to recommend the member states to protect the physical integrity and security of journalists, not only in online sphere, because we see that journalists are very often attacked by verbal attacks, but also in real life. We have to do much more to protect the journalists also by means of European money. We are already now investing in legal aid. We are investing in creating shelters in some places of Europe. And we have relatively good money in the new budget to cover the problems of the media and to help. I hope I didn't sound defensive.
No.
When saying we have low competencies, but that's the reality.
In fact, I will ask one more question about political part, and Daniela will focus on media. Which instruments do you have? Everything you mentioned is essential. And we have been doing conferences, and our colleagues and so many institutions have been focusing on everything you have said. And that's why this initiative is so important. Which instruments do you have to implement what you have enumerated? Or in which areas you have competencies, in which you need more competencies, to put it this way?
Should I also speak about the rule of law, or should I? Yeah.
If you wish.
Yeah, for the rule of law, which I mentioned as the first thing, which I think we should work more on. Well, we have legal possibilities, launch infringements when we see in the member states the breach of EU rules. This is ongoing. We have several infringement procedures against Poland, some against Hungary. So that's the legal way, or the legal instrument. We cannot heal all the rule of law issues by this instrument. So that's why on the other side of the spectrum of our tools, there are declarations, calls on the need to protect the rule of law. You know, we have the debate in the council under the so-called Article 7, which theoretically could lead to sanctions, but we require unanimity, and the solidarity of the states with Hungary and Poland show that we will not get to get the result. In between, we have the rule of law report, which we publish every year. It's important piece of work because we try to catch the negative trends already at the beginning. It's important to catch early issues and start the dialogue with the member states early enough. And what is early enough? In the field of judiciary, you can develop independent judiciary and constitutional balances over decades. This requires a lot of time to build the robust, sustainable system. Look at America, how fragile it can be, yeah? By the way, the oldest democracy. So it takes decades, and then you can destroy it and devastate it overnight by one law, which we saw when in Poland they adopted the law against which in fact paralyzed the Constitutional Tribunal. So the early warning and the early debate with the member state important, and now we have the new tool to connect the rule of law principle with the budget. And I think that this is the practical approach. I sometimes use a rather cynical sentence that who doesn't understand the values might at least understand the money. And well, I think it's quite telling. It's for the rule of law. For elections, we have three kinds of threats: abuse of private data, disinformation online, untransparent campaigning online mainly, and lack of rules for political campaigning online. Half of the member states still in on offline world. And in the meantime, the campaigning has shifted to online. Yeah, we have to capture that. And cyber attacks in electoral period. We are addressing all of these things in our action plan. And the field of media, as I said, more security, decrease of political and economic pressure, and these two things go together. When the media are economically weak, we see that it's so easy to impose the political pressure and to create a bunch of grateful media, yeah, for those who pay. And I have full respect for all the professional journalists who might be under permanent pressure to be grateful. The journalists must be ungrateful. They must do their job freely, without self-censoring and without censoring the content. So, sorry, I am always long, but stop me.
We'll stop you now. I will ask Daniela to take over.
No, this is a very good good point. I mean, because of course we see this problem of economic and political pressure, and as you say, it goes hand in hand. And what can especially journalists expect from the European Democracy Action Plan as a support against this pressure?
First of all, the journalists must feel that they are safe when doing their job. That's why we want to start the dialogue with the member states already now in March, very targeted dialogue, because the states have the monopoly to guarantee the security of their citizens. Journalists are the citizens of our states, and and we have a lot of evidence, they are under extreme pressure and extreme intensity of the threats. And how many murdered journalists do we need in Europe to take action? Yeah, we have Jan Kuciak in Slovakia, Daphne Caruana Galizia in Malta. In Malta, we even see that after she was assassinated, her family was and still is facing the lawsuits in several member states, especially in the UK. And it is these lawsuits are abusive. Their aim is to paralyze the journalists. Now they are against the family of the murdered journalist. For Jan Kuciak, what we saw, there were warnings before he was murdered. He was harassed online. There were signs that he is under serious threat. And the law enforcement in Slovakia did not react. We have a case of harassed journalist in Slovenia. I intervened by phone call with the Minister of Interior of Home Affairs. I urged him to provide some more security, to take some safety measures. And we cannot work like that. There has to be systemic approach at the level of the member states, and this is what we will be pushing for. We have examples. We have a systemic approach in the Netherlands and in Sweden. In Sweden, I think they have security fund and the increased attention of the security bodies to the security of journalists. Similarly in the Netherlands. And so these two member states should be the good examples that it's possible and it's necessary. I mentioned the strategic lawsuit. I would like to come in the third quarter of this year with, or the fourth quarter, with the hopefully legislative initiative, because it's not normal to abuse justice against the freedom of speech, is it?
Do you see that problem increasing all over Europe, or is it only?
It is. Yeah. It is more and more the case that those who have the money and influence have the chance to silence the journalists by means of the lawsuits. And especially worrying is when it is happening through the cross-border cases. And our international law is opening the chance to do that. Mm-hmm. That's why I am now looking into our international private law rules, because at this moment, you can sue the journalist wherever he or she is read, which can be everywhere in Europe. Oh, mm-hmm. That's the decisive moment.
Okay. I see. Yeah?
So, for instance, I am under permanent attack by some people, and there is one so-called journalist in Czech Republic. I will not name him, but before my grilling in the parliament, he wrote articles everywhere in Europe. Theoretically, I could have sued him everywhere. I would never do that because I have to stand it as a politician. Yeah, we are, well, we have the job which invites for patience and some more maybe courage to stand it. But for the journalists, I cannot help it. But if you can do that, to use this cross-border litigation, well, it's an issue. And here I have competence on the cross-border thing. Yeah. But we see the abusive litigations internally in the member states. More and more, we are mapping the situation that it's a rising trend. And I will really try to come with the strongest possible legislative tool or the legislation. But whenever I innovate into the civil law in the member state, and this is the typical civil law procedure, there is a big reaction from the member states, saying, Jourová, this is our holy space, do not invade. So I will have to have very good data and very strong evidence that this is happening everywhere, that we have pan-European problem. And part of the solution lies in the national civil rules.
So it is. So it's also. I understand that it is also important to collect these cases.
We are working on that. This is the very. We already have one study on my table, and we keep mapping because by summer I really have unquestionable evidence that this requires legislative action.
I have just one follow-up question on this protection of journalists issue. Will there also be incentives for media houses for better protection for the journalists? Because I think that might also be important.
I think in the chapter on media there is indicated that not everything can be solved by the Commission or by the member states. That there is a lot of space for work from the side of the media themselves. Is some kind of self-regulatory measures, the standards for professional journalism, and these kind of things, and whether we will manage to move the media and the publishing houses and the roof organizations to do more to guarantee the safety of the work of journalists. We will explore that because we are starting from March on the European network. What's the bloody name of that? You know, not very easy name. We are not good at titling.
Which will be a very long acronym, I'm sure.
You can imagine the acronym. Nobody will know what we speak about. But I want to invite for systemic debate also with the media to find all the ways how they can contribute to the efficiency of the measures.
I have
open the floor.
I have one more media-related question, and then I will ask participants, because we have, of course, already some who want to ask questions. And my question, Vice President, is there's also a part in the action plan about funding for media projects. So what I wonder is, which kind of media do you think should particularly be promoted? Is it startups and new digital media, or is it more the traditional media, or is it public broadcasters? So can you just give us an idea what you think about that?
That is a strange proverb. I normally translate Czech proverbs into English, not always successfully, but there is an English proverb that you have to put the money where the mouth is. And what we see, where is the lack of money, it's especially traditional, regional and local media. And I really have a headache how to get the money there, because we can easier fund the big publishers' houses and those who are equipped also with the ability to prepare the projects. Yeah, and you can imagine, media sector was never a traditional receiver of EU funding. That's why we are now preparing a system for hopefully user-friendly applying. But the idea is that the media would not apply directly, but through some grant schemes, which will be opened at the member state level, so that also the applications can be done in the national local language and so on. But there should be money going both to startups and to those media who want to go digital, because this is important thing. We want to finance cross-border investigative actions. We want to increase the liquidity for all the possible media who will want to use the money. The sources will be Creative Europe, where we have the envelope of 75 million euro. It's not enough, it will never be enough, but at least it is something. That's the money which should go through the grant schemes. Then the Invest EU, which will contain the loans and easy access to the loans. Then Horizon Europe, which will cover the digital projects. The recovery money, which this is the Invest Europe case. It should contain 20% of investments into digitalization. And I urged last week in the Commission, and I will continue doing that, I urged them to urge the member states to put into the national recovery programs also the money for digitalization in media sector. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the recovery money has to be funded through the national recovery plans. And we are urging the member states not to forget that the media sector is starving, yeah, that we need strong media sector, and that whatever money comes from Europe should be also used by the media. Yeah.
Vice President, we have half an hour. People want to ask questions. Just a short answer. I'm really curious for a follow-up on this. You keep saying member states should allocate money. Absolutely agreed. But what if a member state violates media freedom? What if they are not interested in independent media? How can we? How does one control that? Very shortly, and then we have lots of questions already.
That is speaking about the funding, yeah?
About the funding, or if the state kills a journalist and then they have to protect, it's a bit of a problem.
You know, I will say a horribly cynical answer, and don't crucify me for that. But murdered journalists, it's always something which damages the reputation of the state. Even the state which obviously does not support media, even the state which sees media as uncomfortable adversary, even for such states, this is a bad thing. And so I believe that as for the security of journalists and the follow-up to our recommendation, I guess there might be relatively good response from all the member states. For the funding, For the funding, very quick answer, not all the money goes to the state through the channel where there is the decisive role for the official places. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the first question, I'd ask Josef Seethaler from the Austrian Academy of Sciences. Please start your video and audio, Josef.
Okay. Oh, many thanks. Vice President, for your inspiring words. Let me just refer to one point. You said, if I got you right, democracy needs an unlovable press. I totally agree. From my point of view, therefore, political autonomy is so important. And autonomy is increasing the more people are included in processes of opinion and decision making. And not only white men in their 40s. Mm-hmm. So a few months ago, you said Europe is a good address for women despite all shortcomings. I hope so, yeah. Nevertheless, only a few Austrian media companies and a few editorial offices are headed by a woman. Mm-hmm. For example, only one newspaper is led by a woman. What measures do you think should be taken and by whom in order to accelerate the process of achieving the goal of a union of equality in the media sector as well, in the media sector?
It's a difficult question which asks about the solution of the obvious. We have the Media Pluralism Monitor, which was published last year, covering the data between 17-19, and there is the chapter on inclusiveness.
I'm the Austrian representative of the monitor.
So you are the accomplice.
Yeah.
And the survey shows clearly, and I understand now why you are asking, that it's not especially worsening, but there is no good progress in having more women having a say in media. And of course, if the media, in vast majority of coverage transfer to people, as you said, white adult men, it's not the full picture. No? We all will agree. What's the solution? I don't believe that we should come with something like a quota. We tried to push for the quota in the big corporations, and with no success at the European level. But some member states already have the quotas for managerial boards and supervisory boards in big companies. More and more states go that reach for this method. But I think that there has to be much pressure, much more, how to say, pressure also from the media roof organizations to insist on more diversity, and it will require probably more time, but there is one worrying thing, that the women are much more the targets of violence. We have a global figure from Google. 73% of women journalists have experienced harsh attacks, and not only online. And this is indeed discouraging factor. And that's why also we work on guaranteeing bigger security for the journalists, to have more women working in this sector, not to discourage them, because then we will fail everything. And yeah, so.
We have so many questions.
Thank you. I give the word now to Michal Kokot from Gazeta Wyborcza, Poland. Michal, please, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Dobry den. Good morning. Vice President Jourová, thank you for what you said about the media in our part of Europe. And I have a question regarding Hungary and Poland. You mentioned also KESMA, for example, as a foundation which collects now almost all the main titles in Hungary, which are pro-governmental. And as it seems, the same attempt to concentrate the media in the power of the ruling party happens in Poland now, with taking over 20 of the 24 regional newspapers by the state company, oil company Orlen. Do you think the European Commission or the European Union itself can do anything to prevent this to happen, that this independent media will fall into the hands of the government? Because usually the governments say that it's just a manner, it's a question of business, so they cannot intervene, which is quite cynical when we, as we know that these companies are state-controlled, or these are the pro-governmental oligarchs. And a very brief second question is about what happened 2 days ago in Poland, and you observed it as well because you commented on it. I mean, here with the media protest in Poland, again, the new taxation, which will also target the independent media. Can something be done against it? And does the European Commission plan something against it? Thank you very much.
Yes, I reacted on Polish law or draft law by saying, if you want to have black screens forever, just continue doing what you are doing. Yeah, so I plan to address the Polish authorities by a letter, which is not a very common thing because we normally react only on adopted laws. And I did it once before, that I sent a letter at this stage when we already only saw the draft. And it was also to Poland, and it was related to the judiciary and disciplinary chamber. So I am considering doing it again now. And in the time when we need to support media financially, to see that there are more financial burdens imposing on the media, well, it is really something which is worrying. What we can do, we have competition rules which are short. Coming back to Hungary on KESMA, in Hungary the law switched off the competition rules for KESMA because they determined this cartel as the media which work in the national interest. So it means that the national competition rules do not apply, and European competition rules are designed to address much bigger cases as for the financial scope. Yeah, so at this moment we cannot act against such cases, but we are discussing. I'm discussing with my colleague responsible for competition that this is not sustainable and that we have to do something about that. And I think it was in this debate when I said that we made a mistake, that we only look at media as economic sector, and we do not have instruments to protect the media as important factor and player in the democratic system. Yeah. So this is shortage. For coming back to also staying in Hungary, we have a possibility to apply the telecommunication rules. So now we are exploring the Klub Radio, whether this is not in breach with EU rules. And we always look at the limitation of the space for media also from the point of freedom of entrepreneuring. And here comes again the Polish idea of Polonization of media as something which might be in a sharp contradiction with the freedom of entrepreneuring which we have in Europe and where the Commission can act. Yeah, so I outlined the possibilities, but also the shortages.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have follow-up on Poland by Jaroslav from the Press Club Poland. Jaroslav, please.
that conference, and thank you, Vice President, for being with us. I appreciate your honesty that you have weak competences as a European Commission on many media issues. So I will appreciate it in case the press clubs all over Europe can support it. Just two short highlights. The first, what Michał Kokot mentioned, the transaction of buying by government or state-owned company, the regional press in Poland, means also that government is receiving the access to the profiles of the all readers, half of the population, which can possibly repeat a Cambridge Analytica case, just to let you know. And also, since few weeks, 6 weeks, Belarus Press Club, which is outside of EU, our leaders are in jail, and we also hope European Union will react on it. But it's coming all to the conclusion that citizens, I believe, we've got researchers from the 2 days ago protest. People didn't understand what's the point, why media doesn't want to pay taxes. So the question is, what European Union from the level of Brussels and financing can do on the media literacy, on the education of people, of citizens of Europe, how important, what you said, that media are, it's not only economical, but it's the watchdog of democracy. What is the role of media? So what are the plans of having bigger support from societies?
We are not doing enough, and we are speaking about it a lot. Sorry, I am always open, and then I thinking about what I have said, but I really try to be honest. This is an absolutely crucial point. And at the same time, this is the long-term, long distance run. We have put quite a good money in the European budget for media literacy and digital literacy. And I hope that the money will reach good projects which might change a little bit the situation. But I am more and more aware that, more and more convinced that I should address the ministers of education and speak about the systemic approach, because funding from Brussels and declarations from Brussels, well, it's not systemic, it's not efficient enough. There must be a lot happening in the member states.
If I can
we didn't speak about disinformation too much, but I am really worried, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, about the attempts to interpret history and relativize everything. When I saw the debate around the anniversary of the murder of Czech politician Milada Horáková, which is proven murder committed by totalitarian communist regime, and suddenly last year there were online debates questioning her role and questioning whether she didn't deserve it. Well, I think we went too far, and because there is a lack of education and lack of resilience from the side of the citizens, these attacks are bearing fruits. So we have to do much more. If you have ideas how to efficiently increase media literacy and how to do it with quick impact, let me know. On what you said about the access to private data of people, I will consult it with our data protection authority in Poland, because this sounds as a serious thing which might be addressed by current GDPR rules.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next one is Marta Halpert from Vienna, and then please Tim Childer from The Economist.
Ms. Vice President, can you hear me?
Yes. But
Okay.
I only see half of you.
Okay, I'm
Madam.
small, you know, I'm small. I wanted to thank you for your frank and clear words, which you said. And I didn't think it was cynical when you said your quote about money. If they don't understand the values, they'll understand the money. My question is, didn't the last negotiations, when Mr. Orban was blackmailing the EU on the decision of the budget and the funds, didn't you give out the tools? It means the only thing which Mr. Orban understands is money. And didn't you give out of your hand any leverage to show him that the EU is spending money for countries which do not obey to the rule of law? You have given out there's no possibility, there is one, I know, but it's very, very weak, and it will take for years to get it into effect.
Once we start the procedure according to this regulation, it will already have effect, because too much money. Once we have the European Court of Justice decision that it is legal, because this is what Poland and Hungary asked for. Once we prepare the guidelines for the procedure, how to apply this rule, and once we finalize the assessment of the countries which might be the first candidates, and all that is now up and running. We are working on that, and I will not give up because we fought a lot to have this tool. When I first set this idea in Vienna in 2017, you haven't maybe.
Yes, I have heard it. I heard it.
And there was a big shout, big outrage after that. How do I dare? So you can imagine, I am very glad it survived. We have now this rule in regulation. And it was a strange moment when after the budget negotiations were unblocked in December, we were both with Mr. Orban declaring the victory.
Yes, yeah.
Very strange. Usually do not speak the same language.
Yeah.
But I really mean it, that we can apply that. We will do so. And it has to be done on the basis of really very robust evidence and very robust legal analysis. And we are working on that. So I believe it is not weakened so much. The last word will be on the side of the member states, but we don't have unanimity there. We have qualified majority, and it could be sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marta. Thank you. So the next one is Krzysztof. I read a question by Krzysztof Bobinski. Sorry, Vice President, this was my mistake. It's not the Economist question next. So Krzysztof is from Poland Society of Journalists, and he again stresses how important is what you said about the importance of local and regional journalism. And he has a very practical question. The question is, who can he talk to in the Commission, who can explain to him these grant schemes you have mentioned?
I have my colleague Maria Freney. She is great. She knows everything. And she knows all these practicalities. So my cabinet, Maria Freney, yeah? And yes. Look, and she's beautiful. So I can do such comment, can't I? I am like their mother, so I can say that.
And she's very nice and friendly. I had the pleasure to talk to Maria. Okay, I read another question by Roman Geronimos. Madam Vice President, thank you for taking the time to speak for us and for your efforts. I want to read that particularly. He's professor at Bournemouth University and the columnist at Athens Voice in Greece. You use the motto, whoever doesn't understand the values may understand the money. And also you stress that journalists must feel they are safe. Do or should these principles apply to countries that key EU member states are doing business with, like Russia and Turkey?
Like Russia and Turkey? Yes, well, of course, we are now at the stage of preparing for the implementation of the rules which decrease the level of common business with the states which are breaching fundamental rights. You know that we adopted the rules recently. It was announced by Ursula von der Leyen in her speech, and we reacted very soon after. We are also preparing the rules for more or stricter due diligence for the businesses with the countries where there is a suspicion that the human rights are breached. So we definitely do not want to make business with having the blood on our hands. Yeah, I think that it is our position. And if I maybe exaggerate a little bit, we are not so naive to think that we can export our democracy and our approach to fundamental rights to the states like China, for instance. But what we have to do is not to let their governance models to be imported in Europe. Yeah, and this is also our strong task. This is related to disinformation and the permanent attacks, especially from Russia. And we have to defend ourselves, but also be strong and principled as for the human rights violations. And of course, trade is a pragmatic area, but it has some limits, and we will apply the limits where necessary.
I will use my tiny privilege because I don't see a question because I have many. I will start with a very small anecdote that happened 3 years ago at the big conference in Vienna. I was having coffee with 3 Norwegian journalists, and I said, I would like to ask you, how come you're always on the top of the list of credibility in the media? And they looked at me very surprised by the question, and they said, but we trust all of our institutions. And media is just one of them. So you're there to defend the values that at least I hope all of us here in this Zoom believe in. When do you think we shall reach this level in the European Union that we trust the media because we trust the institutions? And just on the negative side, I read this morning a recent study done by Cambridge University that actually the decline in trust in the institutions and democracy started around 2005, and that Europe is divided in North and South when it comes to the trust in the institution. When shall we reach this Norwegian trust?
If you had asked me 5 years ago, I would give you some positive answer, not to spoil the mood here, you know, but we saw the decreasing level of trust towards democratic institutions and the media as well over the last few years, and COVID now is giving it the last blow. Yeah, this is a horrible time when we so much depend on trust, and we have such a lack of it. I think it's part of our problems in fighting COVID. So there is something culturally rooted in Scandinavian countries, because it's not only Norway, it's also, I mentioned Sweden. Yesterday I had a very good debate with Danish journalists. That is over decades built trust and the open communication, transparency, all these things which are needed for trust are in place. So after COVID, I think it will take a longer time. We will always be a kind of determined by those long-term historical, cultural, political traditions. And I don't want to generalize, but well, we still see big differences in the north, in the south, west, east, and that's why we have to be principled on few important things, and not to micromanage, and not to impose the things on the member states which they cannot accept. And here it's the Czech skeptic speaking, because very often when I hear a lot of mentoring, what are you doing in the East? You are disappointing us. We invited you to sit with us around our rich table. The expectations that the East will be just the imitation of the West after several years, it's so naive. And I always have some limit when I really don't want to listen to that. And especially when we speak about the rule of law issues, I always remind all of us that we speak about the free vote of the people, which is important. And so all the things we discussed, the media literacy, education, awareness raising, why we need democracy, why we need freedom of speech, why we need decent internet, why we need some societal rules which protect us against violence, why we need all that. We need to be able to explain the voters that they have it in their hands. They are in the driving seat. And we need them to understand where the vehicle, how the vehicle works, and where the vehicle should go. And so it's a long distance run, and it's also connected with the distrust which we face now, and because we really we can do a lot top down,
yeah,
but we don't have it in our hands. Thank God, because that's the democracy. We cannot have all the instruments in hands to be applied top down.
That's a very great finish. I would have, if your time allows, a last question which fits perfectly, and that is, what would you expect from us as citizens or as civil society?
Yes, this open public debate, reaching out of our bubbles, which I really wanted to do, but I really wanted to travel across the country and speak to everyone, especially those who are the critical voices. Increase awareness why we need the vehicle to go in the right direction. And what else? The media. I think it's important to show solidarity with the media which are under pressure. And there could be more done in this aspect. And I don't know, be demanding for the political sphere, ask or call for more accountability from the side of politics. There are many different things which we cannot do, as I said, top down. Fortunately, you have it also in your hands. And I want to thank you for that.
And thank you for joining us so that the colleagues have the chance to listen to you directly. That is, let's think of that as from the bottom up.
Thank you very much, Vice President, for joining us. Thank you very much for your openness. And of course, mostly thank you for your efforts, also for journalists, which is very important for us.
Thank you very much. Hopefully see you in Vienna soon. I am sniffing even here in Brussels the Sachertorte and good coffee.
We will send you smells of sacherot and coffee, and we will be
And
very.
we really hope to host you here in Vienna. It would be wonderful to continue this conversation in Vienna when you have the chance.
I would love to. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
stay
you. Have a
healthy.
wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.